their phone. Screwed. All right. Who this talk is for? Who's all my super senior pen testers in here? Yeah, you're going to be bored out of your minds. I actually wrote this to be for junior pen testers. A lot of this came from, we kept going to talks and hearing people talk about, oh, people don't know how to use anything but a scanner. All right, well, you're going to tell me that I don't do it right. Nobody's going to show me the way. We'll get on to that. Pen testers that didn't know there was another way. For quite a while, I thought scanners were about the only way to do things. Pen testers who may have forgot the old ways. So all you senior pen testers, there might be a little something you take away from this. There might not be, and you might heckle me and throw things at me. I prefer that. Please aim about here. This is the money maker. And those curious about what the tools actually do. Some of the things that we actually got to do was tear apart the tools and figure out how they worked. So this talk actually came from DerbyCon last year. We got to see Mr. John Strain talk, and awesome speaker. Probably one of the best talks I've ever been to in my life, and I had a blast at it. One of the things he said, unfortunately, one of the other original authors is out running all over the world. We'll get to him later. But one thing we both looked when we came out of the thing, if you can be replaced by a tool, you will be. Everybody is looking to cut money on security. You know, we are not cheap, which is awesome for us. Not so much for the corporate side. They're always looking for a way to get rid of us. And if they think a scanner can do what we can do better, they're going to get rid of you. And then they're going to hire you back in 3 months and figure out the scanner didn't do it. But for 3 months, you might be looking for a job. So this is a corporate stock photo. That's me in the front there. That's Carson actually in business attire. Back there in the back with the suit and tie on. The one next to him is Chester before the beard and when he had hair. And then there's Antonio right there, looking graceful as ever. Why we're here. There are a time and a place for tools. We've all been to that place where we get on site, they give us a Class B address and expect us to get through it in 3 days. You're not going to do this manually. There is no way you can get through that. So yes, there is a time that you're going to have to use a tool. And one thing I want to reiterate very much right now at the beginning of the talk is we are not bashing on any of these tools. We use the shit out of them ourselves. So it was more of learning to how the tool worked and why it worked that we got into this. It wasn't to tear apart and say tools don't work. Why manual testing? Well, Tim here has found out that it's great when he throws me on the Nessus scan to slowly go in while I'm making a ton of noise and completely own a company. We're going to focus on web application testing. We all have to do it. It's all something that we get into, whether we like it or not. We'd also like to help you become a rich monkey. I don't know if you guys are seeing a theme going here. There was nothing dirty about this talk. I just have a thing for monkeys. Whoops. Sorry about that. We'll get to that slide in a minute. Still getting used to this. Why you're here. One of the things we would hope that you can take away from here is how to become a stealthy attacker. How you can go in under the radar and in less than 10 requests, find your way into an organization. This is going to be a great benefit to everybody. No IDS is going to pick you up in 10 requests, especially if somebody else on your team is running Nessus already. By that time, the people in the SOC are already figuring out how do I turn off the alerts. So you're guaranteed not to be noticed. We want to demystify the ideas that scanners are are something that you totally have to have. There's a lot of you guys who are doing this for fun and like learning how to do it. You don't have to go out and buy the expensive scanners. You don't have to have a Nessus license. You don't have to have a burp license. There's smaller things that you can do that you'll actually get better results from. We also want to make you a better pen tester. As we said before, if you can be replaced by a tool, you will be. If you can show that you have a value above the tool, did I break something, Adrian?
Yeah, just focus on now I'm figuring it out.
Sorry, buddy. All right. While Adrian's up here fixing this for me. All right. We want to make sure that you aren't replaced by a tool, that you're not the guy that comes up in the budget cut. Now back to my rich monkey slide. We want to help you guys make more money. If you can prove that you're a valuable asset, you're going to stay at that company. They're not going to want to let you go. They're not going to want to get rid of you. I have the blue screen to death already on a Mac. I am a special person. All right, so the problem. Tools are constrained by a set of rules that are actually put in by the coders, and those guys are amazing and way above my head, and half the time I don't know what they're doing. I live with one of them. Very weird creatures. In our industry, what's the first thing? Somebody read that real loud for me. Rules are meant to be broken. Yes. That is what we get paid to do. That is the first thing you should think when you get on site. How can I do this that nobody else has thought of it yet? Next, tools should be an addition to your testing. They shouldn't be the be-all, end-all of all of your testing. We also don't want to see you turn into a scanner monkey junkie. We all know the pen test puppy mills, those poor places where all you ever get to do is run a rebranded Nessus scan and turn it in as a pen test. All of us have gone on site, seen those results, and just started chuckling to ourselves. I don't want you to end up like my buddy here. I'm not going to mention any names, but you're stealing Mercedes hubcaps to put back on your car after things go bad. Please don't end up like this poor monkey. All right, solution. We're going to do some manual web testing. Yes, we are tempting the demo gods in every way, shape, or form. We are actually going to perform live demos. Yeah, I see some of you guys giggling. We tried it 3 times already today. We're going to go through cross-site scripting. We're going to do SQL injection, and we're going to hit command injection. Why would we pick these 3 simple basic things that everybody knows about? I can't say it any better than right here. It's the OWASP top 10. I keep getting older, and they stay the same age. All right, all right. It'd sure be cool if you fix those problems. But yeah, every year these come up in the OWASP top 10. It's not, without a doubt, you will see these things. Cross-site scripting. Quick refresher for anybody that has kind of forgotten the definition or somebody that's new to this. Go ahead and you can hit the review. I'm here to lead, not to read. Thank you, Carson. One thing I want you to take away from it, the key component of cross-site scripting is the context. Next, SQL injection. The key finding that I want you to take away from that is testing for an input that is not correctly sanitized. Command injection. Again, everybody loves shell, and I would like to thank Egypt because I totally stole that from Metasploit so that I had a slide. Everybody loves shell. Like, that's one of the main things that we try to get when we go on site. So, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This is Nessus, straight out of the box. We did not make one single change to it. We hit their web application test, like I said, didn't make a single change to it, and started to run it. The site that we created, we intentionally put SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and command injection into. We know it's there. We ran Nessus, 11,000 requests, and all we got back was informational. This is why you cannot pull something directly out of the box and expect it to do your job. You need to do your job as well. We then went to SQL Map. We did the settings, level 5, risk level 3, which are the highest settings that you can set into SQL Map. Ran SQL Map. No injection. Not a single problem found by SQL Map. And listen, I am the biggest supporter of open source guys because they are amazing. They are truly the rock stars of our industry because they put the time and effort after work every day to do this stuff and not even do it as a real job. I have enough troubles even getting my lawn mowed. You can ask my girlfriend. She'll probably throw something at me right now. But yeah, these guys put the hours in every night. We have a little slide about that later. We ran burp. Everybody love burp? Who loves burp here? Let's hear it. Yeah. Burp is one of the most amazing tools out there, hands down. We ran burp. Burp actually found our command injection. It was the only one that found anything straight out of the box. It missed two other things, though. Why did this happen? All right. This is kind of my little wrap up, and then Chester's going to take over here for a few minutes. Settings are important. You can't just pull things directly out of the box and expect them to work. Tweaking is important. We spend a lot of time actually, like with Nessus, sitting down and going through all those nasal scripts and actually building something that will find things. There are so many great things out there in the nasal scripts that if you go through and tweak it, it will find everything every single time. Well, okay, I take that back. It'll find a lot more things with a lot better value for your tool. Tools, you saw how many requests they were making. We had 11,000 requests. We had 22,000 requests. Now, if I can do this in 3 requests, do you think any IDS is ever going to spot me? Is anybody in your SOC, I don't care how bad they are they going to see it? No. They're going to be too worried about anything else that's coming in from China, according to some companies. They'll be worried about that. That's what they're going to be looking for. All right, from here on out, we're actually going to use Burp as our reference tool, mainly because it actually did find one thing straight out of the box. A little bit later on, we're going to tell you how we tweak some of the settings to actually get it to find everything, but we're going to start with that in just the basic form. I'll put it there for you.
All right, I got to type here, so we'll see how this goes. All right, so we're going to start with cross-site scripting. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on the reflective SSS. You saw earlier that the tools sent thousands of requests. We only really need one probe. But since we're human, we don't even need that one probe. We can just take a look at the website, see how it's set up, see what's there, and go from there. So let's take a look at the website. And we have our awesome website here. It's
that thing's beautiful.
It's written in HTML5, CSS3, all the fun, latest fancy and stuff. So we have our very angry monkey here. Then we have a little page that talks about us. We got a members page and a login page. Since we're breaking the rules, we're going to try going to a page that doesn't exist. And we get an error. That tells us that the server right now is running Apache. So back to the fun of cross-site scripting. If we take a look at the About Us, we see that the URL has a link to a document in it. It's reading a document from the file system. That's not too indicative of a cross-site scripting vulnerability. When we're looking for a cross-site scripting vulnerability, what we want to look at is the input from the URL is going to change something on the output of the web page. So we can't really change this. If we look down here in the text, we see that the us.text or us.text is not in the document anywhere. So if we go to the members page, we see our members listed, and there isn't too much going on here at this page. However, if we look at a profile, we see that we've got the 42 and Antonio. And then down here we see that there is 42 also. So if we try injecting something into the URL, we see that the URL is changed, but the text on the website hasn't really changed so much. And then if we go look at the source, we see that, again, the text hasn't changed too much. Well, scroll down here. And so, you know, this part of the website is probably not too vulnerable to cross-site scripting. If we take a peek at the login page, we see standard login page, which is usually where if there's a vulnerability for cross-site scripting, that's where it's going to be. So when we're evaluating this, we first want to try what happens when we just log in without a username and password. So we log in and we see, you know, standard error message. If we take a look at this error message, we see that there's maybe some blank space after the username. And, you know, well, so what's going to fill in there? If anything's going to fill in there. So we just try to log in, and we see that our username got replaced with a string of letters. So there we're seeing where we put some input into the web page, and it came out with something different. So maybe some cross-site scripting will work. So also, if we take a look here at the source code, we'll see that our string of text is between a couple of div tags. So if we wanted to do some cross-site scripting, we would have to first start by inserting some HTML tags into it. So we add some HTML tags, type some stuff in, and we see that our username is not the standard username error message now, and that it's also bold. So this is enough to indicate to us that the website is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. However, making something bold isn't really all that fun. So what we want to do is try and run some client-side JavaScript. So we type in our little script, and we now have cross-site scripting with client-side Java. So let's take a look at what went on there. So Nessus and SQL Map didn't find it, but that's okay. Those tools do a lot of awesome things, but they're not really meant to find that kind of stuff. So why didn't Burp find it? Burp didn't find it because the tools use markers. So when it does its testing, it inserts the executable part, and then it puts some text around it, and then it examines the results and returns true if the markers are present. So here is an example of the Burp script and the markers. The markers are on either side of the box there. And then this is what we did to trick Burp. We just said, hey, if you see this, replace it with our username. And that's why you were seeing the username when we were logging in. So next we're going to move on to SQL injection. For SQL injection, we're going to want to find where SQL is being used at and exploit it. For a marker for SQL Map, it used that fancy string. And we're going to use something similar. As we saw earlier, the website's running an Apache server. So it's a pretty good chance that it's also running MySQL on the back end. So we're going to use our shortened string and test it out. So back at our website, if we go to the home page and then see our interesting link, we have our document here. And this might be a spot if the document's being read from the database to do some blind SQL injection. However, we try it out and nothing comes back, so we'll move on. We have a login page again, and let's try the same thing here, see if it works. And we got nothing there. So we'll go on to the members page, and if you take a closer look at the members page, you'll see that the formatting is kind of repeated and only the data's changed. So that's a pretty good indication that something's actually being loaded from the database. So if we go in here to the profile again, and we do our little exploit, we see an SQL message come back, error message. So this means that the website is vulnerable to SQL injection. There isn't any filtering going on those URLs. So since we figured that out, we got our exploit of 3 characters. So we want to try and figure out what the actual character is that's causing it problems. So we'll try the first one, and that didn't return the SQL message. Second one, that didn't return the SQL message either. Third one, voila, we have the SQL message. So now we know that our exploit character is the \. And we also see that we have 2 different spots here where we could input it, on the 42 and on the Antonio. So we'll try it on the Antonio, or on the 42 rather, and see what happens. We get another SQL message, or error message. So if we want to take a look at the source code for this to see what's going on behind the screens, at least for the HTML website, we're going to open up our browser, use curl, and take a look at what's going on. So down here at the bottom, can you guys see that okay? For the most part? All right. So we got our SQL message, same error message. And then in the comments, the HTML comments, the writer of this website was very kind enough to leave us the SQL query that they're actually using to make the to pull the data. So we know that this isn't a very typical real life example of it. However, when you're doing a pen test, reading through the HTML comments on a website are very important. We've been on multiple tests where the comments, they obviously don't say this, but they give enough that you put them all together and you can figure out how to get in and exploit the website. So now that we have our exploit and we have our SQL query, we want to try and make the query actually work from within the web browser and still exploit it, but return true results. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a true statement to the end of the URL here, and we're going to see what happens. Unfortunately, we got an error back. But if we take a look at our error, we see that it looks like they removed all the spaces. So one of the ways around that is to put in HTML encoded tabs. So if we do that real quick, we get back a true result. So we found the vulnerability. We know the query that they're using, and we've managed to break it and fix it all at the same time. So let's take a closer look at that. And we can see here that the underlined text is the database and then the columns in the database. And at the same time, we have the little bracketed text that shows us what our query was, and then our backslash there broke the single quote. So that made the error message appear because it didn't know what to do because all of that text suddenly became the ID field. So then if we look down at the bottom example, we see where we fixed it, and it returned a true statement and then the user. So furthermore, this is how we were able to mess with the searching capabilities of SQL Map and Burp and Nessus. We simply took strings and replaced them as Burp was looking for them or inputting them in. By the way, if you're a web developer, don't use this as your fix and suddenly tell your program manager that the website's secure. So after we get the, go back to this slide real quick. So after we figure this out, there's a couple more things we can do. We can take a look and see, okay, so this is the table. How many columns are actually in the table? What are the values of those columns, or the headers or names of those columns? So that might tell us something more interesting about what's going on with the website. And if there's something more interesting going on in the website, we should definitely take a look at it. So we'll go back to the website here, and there are numerous SQL injection cheat sheets out there. So what we did is we just tried them all until we found something that worked. And we found one that worked. And we will copy this line here. So and we're attempting to get the columns, or the number of columns rather. So our SQL query, that doesn't work if you don't type it right, will try and say, okay, so we're going to join columns 1, 2, and 3 together. And it obviously didn't work because it tells us that the select statements have different number of columns. So we'll just try, you can either try removing or adding a column. We already know there's 2, so 2 might return true. In this case, we know there's 4 columns. So we'll try with 4, and we see that the result returns true. So therefore, we know that there are 4 columns in the table. So next, we want to get the column names. So we'll take our next little example here. And then we're going to switch a little bit, and we're going to use curl for most of these. So if we paste this in here, again, this is trying to combine the columns data, this time using the column names instead of the column numbers. And if we return it, we see that it's complaining that the column name of Twitter doesn't exist. So in this case, we're actually taking advantage of all the error messages that MySQL is spitting out. We're not actually reading anything from the table or doing anything too fancy. We're just taking advantage of the error messages that MySQL has in it. So if we add the Twitter column to our last command, then we see that it has the password column. Now that sounds like a lot of fun. We could definitely find something in there. So again, going through the plenty of examples out there and just finding the one that works, we came up with this command. And what this command is going to do is it's going to run a polygon. So it's going to try to run some calculation of some sort on the data that's in the columns that we specify. What's interesting about this is that when it fails, it's going to return the value of the field that it could not read or could not work into its algorithm. So ideally, we'll get to see the password here. And this is also a good example of if you need to escape your spaces and how to make SQL queries without putting spaces into them. So we run the command, and we all of a sudden have passwords. Right there. So there's the password. Yes, it's very long. It's not super complex, but it is very long, and you will never guess it. So if we go back to our logon page here, and we try it out, and our web developer here is amazing because he didn't even bother to mask the password field. But we log in, and we're in. We just used SQL injection to get access to the website. So go back here and see what's going on there. So I talked about this a little bit ahead of time, but we just replaced the spaces and replaced the slashes with blank spaces, and that was enough to throw off the tool. So SQL injection, once we started tweaking burp and actually reading through, understanding what it's doing, we were able to set it to thorough mode and rest style URL parameters, and it was able to find the SQL injection vulnerability. So SQL map was still getting confused afterwards, and this is what the great thing about the open source community is. We can take a look at how SQL map was written and try and figure out why it was not working. So if anybody wants a side project, here you go. And now, last but not least, we get to the fun stuff, the command line injection. So burp found it with its default settings. So let's go get a show. And back at our amazingly awesome website, the only section that we haven't really messed with yet is the About Us. So if we see that it's loading a document up, and the name is us.text. So what if we don't want to read that file? We want to read something a little bit more interesting. So let's see if we can read the password file, and if I can type it correctly. And unfortunately, nothing comes back. But I mean, that might not be that big of a deal either. It could just not accept the full path. So what if we tried going up to the root directory and then back down to the root directory, or back down to the password file? And unfortunately, that didn't work either. So we don't get to read any files. But we haven't tried actually inserting commands into it. So we know of 3 ways to input commands into the URL. You can either do it with the semicolon, the pipe, or the %sign. So we'll give it a shot here with the semicolon. And that didn't quite work. So we'll try again. And that didn't quite work either. Actually, I typed the wrong thing in there. So that didn't work either. Oh, put some commands in there. There we go. That didn't work either. So, and you saw earlier that I tried the ampersand, or the percent sign rather, without anything extra. So let's try URL encoding the and sign. And then because we want stuff to keep running, we'll do it twice. And voila, we have some command line injection. So if we wanted to do something a little bit more fancy than show 11s, we could say, hey, here's all the files in the current directory that the web page is running from. But we've already seen that this system administrator isn't doing that great of a job. So we have to know that he'll have netcat installed on his system. So well, again, we'll use the ampersand URL encoded. We'll run netcat, and we'll connect to it. So there we have it running. And here we are connecting to it. Same files as before. We're running as www.data, and we have, well, help if I spell it correctly, I guess. Nope, that didn't work either. And we have shell. So that is all 3 exploits demonstrated. And next we have Mr. Justin talking again.
Yep. All right, from what you guys saw, this isn't exactly rocket science. What we're trying to do is actually show people how everything worked. A lot of this stuff was super simple to get to, but it's stuff that's completely overpassed every time we go on site. One of the coolest things for the last 2 places I've worked at, when you come in for an interview, you don't just interview with like the CISO or the chief technical officer who has their CISSP and thinks they're a god of the world. You actually interview with us. I ask these questions. I expect somebody to know this. I've had a great mentor up here in the front row, Mr. Tim, who won't raise his hand. He'll just sit there looking embarrassed. He's almost turning red now. I've had a great mentor, and he showed me a lot of this, and I had another great mentor that showed me a lot of, get away from me. Just go back on outside. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Yeah, I bet you do. Uh-huh. Anyway, when guys come into an interview, we ask these questions, and we're hoping that this will actually teach you guys to be a better interviewer, like when you go into an interview, to better understand. We're also hoping you feel like a powerful monkey after this. Please do not throw your friend out. Get a... Oh my God. Where's this been? I don't even want to know. Dude, yours came out of his back pocket. I'll drink mine now and just keep my mouth shut. Anyway, please do not throw your friends off the high railing today. I want you to feel like a powerful monkey, but not that crazy. As we said, special thanks to Mr. Antonio Herrera. He is actually traveling the world right now. He is bringing the message to the lowest common denominator. I think he's somewhere in China or some... Where is he right now? Thailand? I don't know. He's actually an APT. Yeah, walk that one off. Yeah, he helped me so much with this and helped me to understand a lot of what was going on. A little bit about him. He had 6 years of coding experience and then kind of saw the light and said, why make things when I can break things? Incredible guy. There's actually a copy of this talk somewhere out there with he and I doing it, and it's, please don't hold it against me. It was done in Kansas City. It required alcohol. Anybody have any questions real quick before I have to slam this thing down? Go ahead.
When you were enumerating the number of columns, have you ever thought about taking a shortcut and just using the order by clause?
We did, but we wanted to keep it as basic as possible on this one so that people could see what it was. That's a great thing, and it's actually on one of the cheat sheets we found. yeah, if you look out there for SQL cheat sheets, there are some amazing ones that like pretty much make it brainless to do this. The next few months, I'm giving the spiel one more time at DerbyCon. And after that, Antonio and Chester and I are going to get together and we're going to actually put it up on GitHub. We would love people to actually get involved and like start tearing it apart and see what else you find. Because I get kind of confused when I have to write my own talks. It's easier when people ask me a bunch of questions and I can come up with a talk of questions. But please take a look for it out there. You guys have been great. Uh-oh, what do you got for me? So yeah, you can totally use burp with a repeater. Yeah, that's a cheater man. We're showing you we're showing the real stuff. Huh?
You can also make a list of those, have their own intruder.
Yeah, and just like sit there and have them bang through it for you to where.
Yeah, the real trick is knowing that you can make these kind of substitutions.
Okay, good. Everybody's walking out of here. Nobody's going to see me dry heave. No, everybody can leave now. Go ahead. Totally drinking this thing. Also, I would like to thank everybody for coming to DerbyCon. This is probably by far one of the coolest cons you can come to. Thank you guys all for coming. Buy me a drink so I have something to wash this down with. Hey, you just shut up back there. Oh, God. Oh, God, just...